I gotta find my emoji. There's my emoji. Oh, wow, Michelle, you got your whole background doing your emoji. That's fancy.
That was an accident. I have no idea how I did.
I remember I did that once, like when somebody said something in a meeting and I thought to just like it was just gonna put a heart and it like got really like romantic sounding seeming. Okay, well, I think yeah, folks can go ahead and introduce themselves in the chat today. I do have quite a few things that I want to go through with you all, and I also want to make sure that you have time and space to ask some questions at the end. So it looks like we have a few more people in the waiting room. Oh, good. Welcome, Riley. Welcome, Michael. Scenes. Where we go. It's great, Riley, working for a few years. A lot of party emojis. I like it. Exciting. Ian Ambrose, great. Michael's a Canadian studying here. Great. Kate from California. Welcome, everyone. Yeah, if you're just arriving, I ask folks to drop in the chat name, kind of where you're at in your OT career and the OT emoji. I'll just write that one more time. So if folks are just trickling in, you can go ahead and drop that in there when you get time. I'll go ahead and introduce myself and get us started since it's a few minutes past 12 and I know folks have a lot of things going on and we are recording that if that's okay with you all, we will be stopping the recording for the question and answer. So also if you have any concerns about the recording, please feel free to drop that in the chat for me as well. Okay. But as I mentioned, my name is Bridget Hahn. I am an assistant professor here at Rush. I'm also the director of admissions, so that's kind of the hat I'm wearing right now. I also teach, I advise students, I oversee mentorship groups and oversee capstone students out in the clinic. My background is mostly in physical rehabilitation. So I worked at the Rehabilitation Institute of Chicago, now the Shirley Ryan Ability Lab, for almost 10 years before getting a post-professional OTD and transitioning here at Rush in 2018. I really loved that Rush still was so close to the clinic, and I continue to practice in acute care. Now I'm working with students in senior care, so it's a primary care for older adults. So I really love being at Rush because I'm able to keep my clinical skills versed. So even though I'd been practicing for 10 years, I was like, oh, this feels too soon to transition to academia. But I really love that Rush offers that for me. And I also see that within the students that I'm teaching, right? So our fourth week of the program, our students start the practicum, which is just kind of a curated clinical exposure before you start your field work. And our students are just always like, as I'm teaching functional movement, the first term of the program, our students are like, I've seen that out in acute care when I was there, out in the practicum. Really, that's part of the class, which is something else that I personally really like about being at Rush. So today I'm going to talk through a little bit more about Rush, a little bit more about the program, and then I'm going to talk to you more about the application requirements and process. And again, I'll aim to leave time and space for you all to ask any questions. But if you have any questions, you can feel free to go ahead and drop them in the chat. Michelle McFall Johnson is on. She's our program coordinator. She is extremely helpful. She can answer a lot of questions probably within the chat if I don't see them, and drop different information and resources as well. So thanks for being here, Michelle. She's a great person to know as you're applying. So I'm glad she can join. Should we do it? Sound good? Folks are ready? Okay, so transitioning. You guys can't see the chat, can you? There you go. Okay, beautiful. So Rush University Medical Center, so starting with the system of care that the university is a part of. The medical center itself is the largest and oldest private academic medical center in Illinois. So it actually has some fun history to it. So we've actually been a organization since before Rush was even, before Chicago was even chartered. So it was founded in 1837 by Daniel Brainerd, who is pictured there on the top right. And he selflessly named Rush after the first and only physician to sign the Declaration of Independence. It was Chicago's first healthcare institution. And this was, again, 2 days before Chicago was even incorporated. So we have a system that includes the Academic Medical Center, and we are located, for those of you not from Chicago, you can see we're located just west of downtown Chicago, in the Chicago Loop. We have the university here on site. We also have a 644 bed acute care hospital, a children's hospital, a rehabilitation center, which is pictured on the bottom right-hand corner. It's brand new. And outpatient services that all occur here. We have behavioral health settings as well as treating folks that have physical disabilities here. Rush itself has received a lot of both national and international recognition. We've received the 5-star rating, which is the highest possible from the Center for Medicaid and Medicaid Services for the 5th year in a row, ranking among the top 11% for Best Hospitals Honor Roll. Having a mouse problem here. Okay, here we go. So we also have some other accolades, including our Vizient has consistently ranked us as #2 in the nation for quality and accountability. Rush University Medical Center has also been named an LGBTQ plus healthcare equity report since 2010. So we're really committed to a variety of different measures of excellence, including culture of inclusion. We also have that culture of innovation. So I mentioned our brand new rehabilitation hospital in the bottom right. We're continuously engaged in facilities service line and educational improvements. You'll see some classroom remodels that we've gone through recently into some of our lab space. And we've also recently partnered with MD Anderson to provide excellent cancer care here in Chicago. So now transitioning on from the organization as a whole to the university. So the university, as I mentioned, is located just across the street from the acute care hospital. We're about a block away from the rehabilitation hospital, and we can also access like our outpatient therapy services all through a pedestrian way. So we're very close physically to the hospital, and all of the students that attend here at the university are exclusively focused on health sciences. So that we have the medical college, the College of Nursing, as well as the College of Health Sciences, which is the college which the occupational therapy program is in. Some of the other programs that we have here in the College of Health Sciences include speech language pathology, like blood banking, audiology, respiratory therapy, and a number of others. Most of them are all graduate level programs, but there are some undergraduate degrees that are available here and some undergraduate students here. So all of our different programs really aim to have that clinical integration, which I mentioned earlier. So some of that is both having the clinicians here on campus with helping teaching labs, as well as having our students going over to the clinical sites every semester throughout the program. And we'll talk more about that as we move on throughout the presentation. Another thing we really highly value is community service. So part of our, our mission is really to improve the health of those we serve. And we know that that occurs not just through treating people at the hospital. We know we need to kind of reach through multiple different ways to improve health. And we feel like we need to really serve the West Side community. So Rush itself has a lot of different initiatives to help support the West Side community. And here within the College of Health Sciences, we have a requirement that all of our students participate in a minimum of 16 hours of community service before they graduate. And all of our students have plenty of different opportunities to do that. I was just with some students doing some balance screenings over the weekend. Consistently, there's different faculty doing different service. I just sent out an email with about 10 different opportunities for students, and there's no shortage of ways to get involved with the community here within the Rush and the OTD program. Okay. Sorry, I switched to Canva recently, and I feel like I like have that little dot everywhere. I'm trying to like be on my screen. But that's not distracting for people. So occupational therapy at Rush. So we talked about the medical center overall. We talked about the university. Now, occupational therapy at Rush has a really long and also interesting history, similar to the hospital. Our clinical services started here way back in 1960 by Susan Tracy, who's actually been named one of the founders of our profession. She was busy here in Chicago when our professional association was being formed in New York. And fun fact, that was actually a few years before physical therapy itself was even established as a profession. So OT was actually established first. I feel like a lot of folks don't really know that. And here at Rush, we decided to start an academic department back in 1986. That was found by Cynthia Hughes Harris, who is pictured there on the right. That's Susan Tracy on the left, saying OT is awesome. And then we decided to transition to the OTD in 2017. So this was, at the time, there was a discussion of a mandate, but Rush really saw us being the leader in innovation and keeping the profession moving forward. It was really essential for us to transition to the OTD to stay current and at the best of OT practice. I'll talk a little bit more about that moving forward as well. So you can see we've graduated I believe, 5 different cohorts under our OTD program. We've been fully accredited since 2019, so we really have gotten our doctorate degree up and running, and I feel like we've worked out a lot of kinks and have a really strong entry-level OTD program. Here's a little bit more of what our campus looks like. So you can see the top left-hand corner is one of our collaborative learning hubs where we have a lot of different newer interactive spaces to have students working together in a less like traditional big lecture hall, right? We're going to be working together in smaller settings and lab settings with groups um, here at Rush. We also have access to a simulation center. The students are actually getting ready to do their first one this week where they're having a client actor and then they have to deliver an assessment to the client. So it's always a little bit scary for students, but they consistently afterwards feel like they have increased their confidence. I feel like it's another way that besides just having our students in the clinic, our students tend to be really prepared for field work. And I was actually just talking to an alumni last week, and she was like, actually, they only take Rush students at a few sites that I've been talking with and a few of my different coworkers. And I was like, oh, really? That's interesting. We have a really strong reputation for having clinically prepared students. And I think our simulation is one of the ways that that happens. There's another picture of our acute care hospital. We call it the Tower. If you're driving west out of town in Chicago, you can see it. And we are located just a pedestrian bridge away. There is like a little rooftop space you can see pictured here where students oftentimes gather and have lunch. We have a few different outdoor spaces. On the bottom right, this is a picture of the library where students spend a lot of time. You can see It's a little bit blurry, but there's little booths and tables. Students will have lunch. They oftentimes use these whiteboards to draw different things, and students have access to the library 24 hours a day through their access badge. We have a Panera and a Starbucks, which is a very convenient way to stay hydrated, sustained, and spend a lot of money. We also have a second floor cafeteria right within our building that has a variety of different local restaurants and vendors that rotate through, which is another way we try and like really invest in the local community by like buying and resourcing from them. So that's one of the other ways that we support. And there's always some like interesting food options available down there. So that's a little bit more of what like. I'm going to talk a little bit later. We have an open house upcoming in the fall if you want to come on and actually check us out in the 3 dimensions. We also have student tours that occur throughout the entire year that we can set up as well, or that we promote, we set up. And then if you also are just coming into town, if you're from out of town, feel free to shoot us an email and we'd be happy to coordinate something so you can see us in person. So a little bit more of a high-level overview of our OT program. We are an entry-level doctorate program only. We have a cohort that starts in September and they run all the way through for the 2 years and 8 months or 8 semesters. It's full-time. We call them semesters for some reason, but they're actually a fall, spring, and summer, which means there's 3 terms. So that's a little bit silly, but you'll stay busy for the entire time that you're in the program. It's full time. We try and have our classes run Monday through Thursday because we have so many other clinical experiences and group work that gets scheduled on Friday. Some students also work on Fridays. I usually recommend that students don't do that the first semester, but get grounded. The first semester is heavy in foundational coursework. But as they've gotten oriented to graduate school life, the people, etc., the rigor of our coursework, many students do end up adding on some sort of job that they work on the weekend, etc., evenings. A lot of times students are able to find jobs where they're able to like double dip and do homework, which is ideal. Um, Babysitting, if they're like sleeping a lot, etc., those types of opportunities. So we do have that practitioner teacher investigator model where all of our faculty are involved in some sort of clinical work and also do some research. And we have faculty across the different interest areas or the many common practice settings. So um, we have 2 faculty that have pediatric experience, for example, a lot of folks that are working with older adults. We have a mental health specific faculty who's still like active here in seeing patients at the behavioral health clinic. We have a small student to faculty ratio, so we aim for a class size of about 36, anywhere from we've admitted 34 to 40 in the past few years, just because of the changing dynamics of trying to hit our target with admissions. But like moving forward, we're aiming for a class size of 36. That does tend to vary a little bit. And we have a smaller faculty. We have about, I want to say 8 or 9 faculty, if I'm thinking offhand, but oftentimes in like lab classes, we're always inviting in some of the clinicians are really eager to come in. So when I teach lab in the fall, when I teach functional movement, I always have at least 2 clinicians in there with me to help support students, which is really great that our students have access to those multiple different perspectives as well. I mentioned we've been fully accredited since 2019. That went very smoothly. We were granted the maximum accreditation period, like reaccreditation period, which is kind of how you determine how well it went. If it didn't go as well, they might come back in a year, for example, but we got the maximum period, which we're proud of. At Rush, since all of the students are healthcare focused, there are a lot of interdisciplinary opportunities. So all of our all of the students at the university take a interprofessional education course. It runs the first 2 semesters of the program. So you get assigned a community health worker or a community health user, so somebody that has a chronic condition, and then you are paired with a group of students that are from across all of the different backgrounds and work with them to learn different skills about different clinical skills and different skills related to the healthcare being a healthcare professional. So those are a few of the highlights. We do also offer a number of different certifications and specialty trainings that set our graduates apart. I think the most useful for our students and our graduates is the physical agent modality certification. So our students are actually preparing for their modalities practical tomorrow. They're nervous. So that the modalities include everything like hot pack, cold pack. You may have seen or heard of TENS or neuromuscular electrical stimulation, paraffin. So there's both thermal and electrical modalities. So this is taught over the course of a number of weeks within your clinical preparation course. And in the state of Illinois, you need to have undergone this training in order to complete any of those things in practice. So for example, I went and I got my master's degree at UW La Crosse. I learned about modalities, but then in Wisconsin. And then when I started here in Illinois, I had to pay for a 4-day course that can run through our state association here in Illinois for $500 um, in order to be able to do something like give a hot or a cold pack. So that's something, a really nice perk that our students are able to obtain. And then they go right out on their first field work after that. So a lot of them are able to get all their checkoffs and practice in an actual clinical situation, which is great. So I mentioned we kind of try and scaffold and build up folks' preparation for field work. So that starts the fourth week of the first term. We have the practicum experiences, which run the course of the 3 semesters, the first 3 semesters. And then we're kind of working from where you're at now with observing OTs and slowly like upping the expectations a little bit each semester. So that way, when you go to your first field work, you're not like, okay, how do I introduce myself? How do I introduce OT? How do I review a chart? You've been familiarized with all those things through a structured, supported curriculum and exposure, slowly graded exposure over the first 3 semesters. So our students do the fieldwork 1A and B in 2-week increments across the third and the fourth semester. Those are consistent. Both the fieldwork 1s and fieldwork 2s are things that all programs are required to do to be accredited. So you'll see those consistent as you look at different programs. Fieldwork 2s are always 2 12-week experience, but the ones can look different across different programs. We have ours kind of sectioned out in 2-week sections at the end of the third and the fourth term where students go out. And then the very final kind of clinical experience is the doctoral capstone, and that may be clinical or it may not be, but it's certainly a professional experience in a professional setting. It may not be a traditional setting like you will see more commonly in those first 3 opportunities, but it's definitely where you're needing to use all of those skills together, and it's like the culmination, right, of the entire curriculum. I talk a little bit more about that as we move forward about the capstone experience. So a little bit more about our academic program. I mentioned that we have the small class size. We try and develop close relationships and have like open door policies. We have a beach cleanup event always during orientation week where students are paired with their advisor to go out there, and it's like a friendly competition and also embodies our service value to pick up the most trash on the beach, and we have a little bit of fun. We also really are aiming to be leaders in classroom and clinic technology. So you can see here we have our students 3D print um, a piece of adaptive equipment that some of the clinical students provide clients for that are in need of adaptive equipment. So our students all gain that experience. We also have 2 anatomatage tables to help our students study in that first semester of anatomy and also throughout the rest of the curriculum to help enhance their understanding of the foundational components of the musculoskeletal system in the body. we're always like aiming to stay current with whatever is the most current technology used out in clinical practice as well. So you can see these are some social emotional robots and some visual balance training device called the BITS. Um, here on this bottom left-hand side. Just gonna transition, that's the wrong way. So we really like to emphasize that we do have those hands-on clinical experiences every semester. So the practicum experiences occur basically within walking distance, usually of Rush. So we have a variety of different practice settings, though. So you can see OTs traditionally work in those like physical disability settings. We also have behavioral health settings, and we also have like a daycare setting. So you can work in these practicum settings, like both across the lifespan and across the different settings that OTs commonly work in. And then we also have different clinical, like community partnerships. So some of our faculty are consistently doing outreach at Revive for folks experiencing houselessness. And we have Dr. Zhenya Popova, who is the president of Gigi's Playhouse, which also serves as a lot of opportunities for some of our clinical experiences. Kind of broadens the scope of what you may think about clinical to be, as to be more of like a community site. Because we feel like OT is emerging in a lot of these different practice areas. There is an OT at that site with folks experiencing houselessness. And I feel like, and we feel our program supports students to not only go into those traditional roles, but also to expand into spaces where student or clinicians may not always be traditionally. So I talked about the doctorate degree and why we decided to transition. I like alluded to it earlier on, but we really feel that the OTD is really essential to move our profession forward and align with the increasing demands of healthcare and the advanced skills required. We know that our program really helps promote leadership skills and roles and has provided a lot of different job opportunities for our alumni. So we have students that have gone into a primary care site, which was the first time they had an occupational therapist there, and were able to like essentially create that job and get hired there. We have students that for capstone consistently go to the mayor's office for disability, and there came an opportunity for someone to, or they became an opportunity where the capstone student applied and ended up working at the mayor's, is working currently at the mayor's office for disability, helping with programming to increase the access of the services that the city of Chicago provides. So really expanding our reach upon like more of a broader population level, which is really cool. We also have students that are faculty members, which is something that's unique to the OTD versus the master's level, that it offers you that. Actually, our capstone coordinator is a class of 2020 alumni, I want to say, or 2021. So we've actually hired one of our alumni, which is really exciting, and she's now helping teach the next generation. So I mentioned our practicum sites and then our fieldwork sites. A little bit more about that. We have different sites set up across the US, 38 different states. And if you're, let's say, from Idaho and you have a site that you want to go to, we're happy to set up contracts as long as it's worked through with our fieldwork coordinator in advance. You can set that up and you would definitely have the invitation to go to that site if we're able to set that up with the contract. So students use this exact software kind of like algorithm system where they are given a list of different fieldwork sites. So we have 200 total fieldwork sites on that list every year for our 38-ish students, and they rank their different preferences in which site that they're going to. And we kind of use an algorithm also based off of faculty input to make sure it'd be a great match, and we pair you with different sites. So we also have an established process if you are interested in requesting a new site. So not only do we have them here in the US, but also we have international locations with our students consistently going to Ecuador. We have a pediatric clinic in Germany and a number of different opportunities as well across if you're interested in traveling international. So a little bit more about another core component of an occupational therapy education research or scholarship. We have in our second semester of the program, students are paired with a faculty mentor as they're learning about the different research methods, and they're actually assigned a specific project with that faculty mentor based off of mutual interests. And then we have small student groups who work with faculty to complete a research project. So it's really cool that we don't necessarily like have big research labs that you'll just be like added into. You'll actually get to like see a research project from the ground up all the way through the entire process. So helping with things like the institutional review board approval, developing the procedures, and then actually like doing the data analysis all alongside your faculty mentor. So this occurs over the course of then the next 3 semesters and ends with like a research presentation day. So you have a lot of like time and space, right? It takes more time and space to execute like a full project. So you get a year and a half working closely with the faculty mentor. I think it's another great way where we scaffold our students so they're really prepared when they go to their capstone experience to understand more of like research methods or really like strategic ways to understand clinical questions. Then we have a fun little People's Choice Award. This is Dr. Taylor, his group won last year at our poster presentation day. Um, then we also have the opportunities if you're into research and really want to explore a certain question, you have your capstone project where you can explore that. You have opportunities for publications and presentations, so our students are consistently very well represented across our state, our national and international presentation. So you can see pictured here is a capstone student that I worked with. She developed a evaluation procedure and referral process for occupational therapy in that older adult clinic using this framework. So here she was actually invited to be the keynote speaker of an adult rehabilitation conference through our national association, which I was really proud of. And then she actually just got accepted to the World OT Congress, which is happening in Bangkok, Thailand in February. So I think all but 2 of the faculty are going, and quite a few of our students and alumni have also been accepted to present at the World OT Conference. So we're very excited about that. We understand that going to graduate school can be a stressful experience, or there's a lot of different demands outside of just academics that students need to consider. Rush itself has some resources, and we as faculty also want to be very supportive as well. So we have a Center for Academic Excellence where you can get writing, research support, academic coaching. They come in during orientation and help with a lot of our curriculum, and our students find them really, really helpful with transitioning to graduate level learning. We also have student accessibility services that are really helpful in helping to coordinate any accessibility needs. The financial aid office, because we understand that finances can be difficult to navigate. And then I mentioned faculty. We also have the Center for Clinical Wellness, which is just across the interstate. And it's a really, really lovely, beautiful space where students have access to free mental health services. I mentioned that we have the service hours requirement. There is no lack of opportunities to engage with the different communities. We're out there trying to promote the profession. I have some students going with me to Veggie Fest in August, where we're working to promote OT with the larger community. We do things like balance screenings. These are street runs where we're going out and providing OT services for those experiencing houselessness. We're just gearing up for the backpack fair where we're able to help put our ergonomic knowledge to use and do a backpack fitting for the back to school fair. We always adopt a family and for the student OT or organization and do a big gift wrapping party, which you can see over there on the right. There was one quick thing I didn't, the leadership and the teaching opportunities. We have always have quite a few capstone students that do academics, which I think really helps position and prepare them if they are interested in future career in academia. And we also have opportunities like being a member of our admissions committee. We have two students currently in the second year and one student in the first year to try and help us stay current and have diverse representation on our admissions committee and newer things to consider. So there's a lot of different opportunities at Rush to get involved. Alongside just our student organization, we have a chapter for the Coalition for OT Advocates for Diversity, and that's a national organization. On top of that, we really felt strongly back in 2020 that we wanted to have a specific Rush group that was committed to equity and accountability. So through these monthly meetings, we've had really just opportunities to discuss with students on a more like flat leadership level. What are opportunities for us to be accountable, like both within our curriculum and within our community? So some of the things that we've developed are like programming related to hijab and sari. So trying to diversify some of the cultures that are represented in our typical activities of daily living that we talk about, as well as things like updating the syllabus to make sure that and to include like an inclusive classroom policy and to have supports for students to navigate some of these challenges that they're experiencing. Oops. That one's an important one. I'll go back. So we are ranked number 18 by OT schools by US News and World Report. We're very excited about that. We've continued to climb every year and we have a lot of energy. Our chair, Dr. Roselli, has a lot of innovative ideas and she's really pushing us and supporting us as faculty to keep extending ourselves, which is really exciting. Our students also, when they graduate, are really well prepared to take our board exam, which is something that's really important because in order to practice, you do need to pass a board exam once you're done with OT school. So we've had 100% NBCOT pass rates along the most recent cohorts that we have complete data sets for. And you can also see here that our pass rate tends to be much higher than the national average, which is something that we pride ourselves in. We have an NBCOT practice exam that students need to get a certain level. It's not the full 450, which is the passing score. I think we set like 430. You have to at least achieve that during your second to last semester in order to move forward. And at that point, if you don't, we want to like, right, support you here, get in resources, etc. But I think our alumni then feel really prepared to take the practice exam. We also have alumni review sessions and supports for students in that way as well to make sure we also try and write our test questions in NBCOT style fashion, which students have like a love-hate relationship for because they can be challenging. It's always like select the best answer, right? So there's multiple right, but it's like select the best answer is one of the many things that we try and tweak to be NBCOT-ish. So beyond just the board exam, we do our alumni for the most part are satisfied with the variety and the blend of our educational experiences, which we pride ourselves in. The mean salary in the US, according to the Department of Labor statistics, is 96,000. I would say our new grads typically earn closer to 60 to 70 average when they start in the generally Illinois area. But our alumni go everywhere, are employed across this nation. And then as far as employment, there are a plethora of different occupational therapy jobs out there. I know some of our alumni will occasionally have to compromise on something like if there's a location or pay or practice setting, right? So there's a lot of different things, but based off of what you're really putting at the top of your value system, able to find some sort of match. I know we have graduates from this recent graduating class in April that are working at Northwestern, that are working at Shirley Ryan, that are working at different school districts. So really across the different practice settings, our students tend to work. So now transitioning to, that was a little bit more like about our program and our outcomes. Now I want to talk a little bit more about the application process to our program. So here you can see our mission that we kind of distilled from Rush's mission. I think if you go and just like make sure that you're looking at the websites for the different programs that you're applying to, here we're really looking for students as we go through and review your application to see that you're committed to learning, and that doesn't necessarily have to be a 4.0 GPA, but even like speaking to different challenges that you've faced and that you've continued to pursue an advanced degree is something that can really support and advance your application. So scholarship, any sort of research opportunities, we know that a lot of our students don't have access to a ton of research opportunities, but anything that you've been involved in, whether that was a project in undergraduate, it's helpful to know more about the experience that you do have. And also just like more of that like curiosity for learning, like in your personal statement can kind of reflect that like I have a question and I want to answer it more than just like the logistics of research. So service, I mentioned, we really pride ourselves in service. So having a variety of different volunteer opportunities. So it doesn't even have to be a variety. If you're committed to one place and you've worked there, you've volunteered there over a longer period of time, a number of weeks, that's great. Any volunteer experience is going to be with, reviewed and considered. So definitely make sure, even if you don't have a large breadth of volunteer experience, make sure to include it and try and get some, if you can, different volunteer experiences. And then demonstrating that passion for occupational therapy. So we see this a lot in how you kind of articulate that response to the OTCAS question about describing basically why you're passionate about occupational therapy. So trying to really piece together your like holistic understanding of the profession and just speaking to any different personal experiences in that personal statement. So remember, we're reading a lot of these anyways. You can try and like capture our attention or speak uniquely to you will help us um, get candidates that are aligned with our mission. And I talk more about a lot of these as we move forward. So in order to get accepted into our program, kind of like the first level of that we're looking at is that you have to have completed an application through the OTCAS centralized application system, which opened last week for the admissions matriculation admission 2026. We require that you have completed a bachelor's degree from a regionally accredited institution. Many of our students are actually still finishing up their bachelor's right now for the incoming cohort. We just must have your final transcripts before you begin the program. The personal statement I mentioned some tips for as I reviewed the mission. So definitely as you're working on your personal statement, make sure to have somebody else check through it for grammar, for spelling, um, then an organization. Try and keep it concise too. Like, I don't know if OTCAS has a page limit, but I no more than one page is preferred, is strongly preferred from us. And then again, just speaking to your understanding of the profession and being yourself, trying to be creative in any way that you can as well. And even if you're talking about things within your personal statement or within the experiences section of occupational therapy, make sure you do touch on them if you think it's really relevant to occupational therapy, these experiences, let's say shadowing or some of your observations within your personal statement. and vice versa. Like even if you haven't, or even if you spoke about this volunteer experience and how it impacted your interest in occupational therapy in your personal statement, make sure to outline in the experiences section of OTCAS, like the details of the hours and etc. That just allows us to have a fair review of our different applications that we're receiving. So we want to know like how long, what was the scope of that. We want all of that bulleted out in the experiences section. We have an applying to OTCAS video at the bottom of our admissions webpage, which would also be kind of walks through a lot of these things. So no stress if you haven't like gotten all of this down. And I also am recording this, which may be helpful, but we actually help like walk you through the OTCAS application in that recording. I have some students right now. The admissions committee member students are working on updating that, but last year's is currently posted and it's certainly sufficient. Okay, so sorry, some of those other minimum general requirements on the right-hand side, we do require that you have at least a 3.0 on a 4.0 scale of your most recent 2 years of education. So we try and capture the most reflective current academic performance. So we try and be generous, like gracious if you had any bumps along that initial higher education journey. We have 2 letters of recommendation from anyone familiar with your professional aptitudes. So that can be a current faculty, somebody that you've been working with, supervisor, coworker, etc. Doesn't have to be an OT, but can also be an OT is acceptable. We require 20 hours minimum of different observation experience. So we really want that to be separate from any work experience. We want you to specifically be understanding occupational therapy. It's going to be to your benefit in articulating your knowledge of occupational therapy in your personal statement that you try and do any observation across multiple different practice settings. It's not required, but that's only going to strengthen your preparation to write your personal statement, to interview, etc. And just make sure you know what you're getting yourself into. This is a large investment in your career. You want to make sure that you really understand the profession and are enthusiastic about it to make this commitment. We do have alumni. I have a large list of alumni who are eager to have prospective students come in and shadow. So please do feel free to email me if you are interested in that. Michelle, do you mind dropping in my email in the chat? And just like I'm working on getting a survey to post on our website to match prospective students, but feel free to shoot me your name, where you're at geographically, and then if you have any certain interest in the practice settings, I can try and match you up. Then we do virtual interviews that run from November through to February, and those are invitation. Last year, I think we did 160 interviews for the 250 applicants that we got. And that filled our 30, right now we're filled at 36, and we still have some changes that may occur before we start. So beyond those like minimum requirements, we do have a number of different prerequisite courses, human anatomy and physiology, that must be taken within the past 5 years, but all of the other courses are just anytime before you start the program. So statistics must be descriptive and inferential, one sociology or an anthropology course, human growth and development, and that has to be across the lifespan. So from birth through death and dying. So sometimes folks do take multiple courses across different like psychology, etc., in order to piece together that prerequisite. We require 2 psychology courses, so one psychology course that can be anything, any level, general level up to more advanced level, as well as everyone must have an abnormal psychology. There's a few more details about those on our website as well. So when you apply, you'll hit submit on your OTCAS application. Make sure to keep current and make sure like your transcripts are being verified because we will not review your application until your transcripts are verified. So make sure to pay close attention to your OTCAS email notifications and that your transcripts have been verified. At that point, we'll make sure you met our minimum criteria, and then we'll really dive in as an admissions committee member and review your personal statement, your work, research, and community service experience. And then I mentioned that interview upon invitation. That's online interviews that occur in November through February. I mentioned we had 250 applicants last year that we filled at, aiming to fill at 38 seats. So definitely do try and apply early. I mentioned our interview starts in November, and our folks that apply before mid-October, October 15th, we kind of have an early acceptance deadline and just have a better likelihood of making it into the cohort. I mentioned complete that experiences section of OTCAS thoroughly. Definitely make sure to take a close look at our website, and our information packet has a plethora of information, and follow us on Instagram. You can get like current information through there. We're always posting about the next upcoming event or other way to get involved here. Okay, and then next I need to talk about the cost. So I mentioned that this is a large investment, right, in your future. So the cost of tuition for the full program right now is $123,000. Um, and some change just above that. So that comes out to about 15,500 a term. Students pay a flat rate each term. There are no additional labs or additional fees. We're working really hard to keep our tuition at a competitive cost. So we feel like when we benchmark ourselves about other OTD programs, we are below overall, and we really strive hard to like work with the college to try not to do any tuition increases. And we were fortunate that we did not have a tuition increase this year. Um, no additional lab fees, I mentioned. So all of our students are eligible for financial aid through the FAFSA. Of course, there's a lot of things occurring within the federal government that we'll have to respond to related to financial aid as able, and we'll be here to help students navigate that and committed to do whatever we can to get our students access to finances to support their education. One of the ways that we're able to do that, we do have a fair number of scholarships. This year, we awarded over $250,000 to the incoming cohort. Some of them are merit-based scholarships, and those are just awarded based off of your OTCAS application. So there really is no further application that you need to complete for our scholarships. So we have graduate assistance, in which students are 8 different graduate assistants that receive $25,000 to be paired with a faculty member and work with them throughout the course of the first year of the program. We also have a few different scholarships that are available for those that feel that they demonstrate really this commitment to our mission. So these are our College of Health Leadership and the Allied Health Professional Scholarship. Those are really allocated again based off of your OTCAS application, but you will see in the essay section for our school specifically, if you feel like you're a candidate that could really help us enhance our mission, you can write a short paragraph about that in order to be eligible for these other 2 scholarships as well. So a little bit more for those of you that are newer to the Chicagoland area, you can see here it really nicely pictures how close we are to the downtown location. You're in the heart of a diverse metropolitan area. Many of our students walk in from the local surrounding area. Some of them commute in from the suburbs. Some of them live in our many diverse neighborhoods that we have across the Chicagoland area and take public transportation in. Our students have access to free public transportation, which is called the U-Pass during the academic program. We have a commuter shuttle for folks that take the metro in from the suburbs. There's also a parking garage located right across for some folks drive in as well. Okay. Chat. So I mentioned follow us on Instagram. We have some giveaways coming up that we're planning for personal statement reviews from a current student or reviewing your OT-CAS application. So definitely make sure to keep a lookout for those. We'll send you these slides afterwards as well. We have some student tours. That one passed. We'll be posting new student tours soon. And we also have the open house upcoming on Friday, October 17th. So I mentioned that's in the fall. And then if you're interested, we also have some alumni Q&A sessions. This pediatric one is coming up next week. Maybe you saw it as you went to register for this information session, hopefully. And we're going to be launching a whole new set of those that will start again in August soon. So definitely make sure to keep an eye out on the website where you registered for this one as well. So contact us. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions or concerns. There's how you can get a hold of us. We know that applying to OT school can be a confusing process, and we want to help you navigate that however we can. So thank you for your attention. It was really nice to have so many folks that were on camera and looking at me as I went through it. So I'm glad you guys were able to do that. Okay, I tried to be quick. We have 4 minutes and I have time afterwards, and I'm happy to address any questions now.